know what I'm saying? Said that line, if you think I'm going out like Pac and Biggie, you must be stupid, because it's like, shit, like everybody know it, you know what I'm saying? Like, they tried to pull a move.
Young Dolph survived over 100 shots in 2017, but his luck ran out in 2021. Now his killer is behind bars, and the streets are talking. We've got the inside scoop on what's happening to Dolph's murderer in jail, and trust me, it's not what you're expecting. On November 17th, 2021, the rap game lost another one. Young Dolph, real name Adolph Thornton Jr., was gunned down at Makita's homemade butter cookies in Memphis. This wasn't some dark alley hit. It went down in broad daylight while Dolph was doing his thing for the community, handing out Thanksgiving turkeys. It was a cold move that shook the streets. The Memphis Police Department Chief Sarah Lynn C.J. Davis issued a statement to the public saying, "We are committed to working with the community to stop these senseless We are also committed to bringing those responsible for today's shooting and others to justice. And today, we're about to break down who might have been pulling the strings behind this hit. The alleged mastermind? You won't believe who it is. The $100,000 bounty. $100 grand to silence Young Dolph forever. That was the price offered. But the real shocker, the man allegedly behind the bounty wasn't just another street hustler. He was family to one of the biggest names in hip-hop. The streets were buzzing about Anthony Big Jook Mims, brother of rap heavyweight Yo Gotti. Word is, Big Jook put a $100,000 price tag on Young Dolph's head. This wasn't just some petty beef, it was a full-blown war between two of Memphis's most powerful rap factions.
Everybody see that my haters is bigger than life. You know what I'm saying?
Young Dolph had been a thorn in Yo Gotti's side for years. See, Gotti's label, Collective Music Group, CMG, had been trying to sign Dolph for a minute, but Dolph wasn't having it. He turned them down multiple times, and that's when things started getting ugly. Dolph wasn't just saying no. He was making a whole career out of dissing CMG. He dropped track after track, taking shots at Gotti and his crew. And in the rap game, disrespect like that doesn't go unanswered. The rivalry between Dolph and CMG wasn't just about music. It spilled onto the streets, and that's where things got dangerous. Prosecutors say the beef had been escalating for years, with both sides trading more than just bars. This wasn't Dolph's first brush with death either. Back in 2017, someone lit up his car with over 100 shots.
They started shooting, they shot. Shooting was over with. And shit, I had another party to go to that night. You know what I mean? So, shit, we went and did our party that night.
Dolph walked away from that one and even made a track about it called 100 Shots. But his luck wouldn't hold out forever. The hit on Dolph wasn't some random act of violence. It was part of a bigger pattern, a deadly game that had been playing out in Memphis for years. When the shooters allegedly contacted Big Jook after the hit, it showed just how organized this whole thing was. But here's where it gets even messier. There was another player in this game, Hernandez Govan. Word is, he was the middleman, the one who allegedly connected the shooters with Big Jook. This wasn't just a hit, it was a full-on conspiracy. The hitmen. The story of Young Dolph's murder isn't just about the masterminds. It's about the men who pulled the trigger. Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith, two Memphis locals, allegedly agreed to split $80,000 for carrying out the hit on Young Dolph. But that payday never came. According to court testimony, Smith only got $800 before he was arrested. That's right, less than 1% of what he was promised. Smith spilled the beans in court saying, "We didn't know who we were going to catch. They just knew Dolph would be in the area for a Thanksgiving turkey giveaway." Smith didn't hold back on the details. He told the court, "I shot through the glass. I wasn't close up on him. I shot through the glass. I saw him standing by the window. I just got out and started shooting." After the shooting, Johnson and Smith fled in a stolen Mercedes, but their getaway wasn't as smooth as they hoped. The car was later recovered, leaving a trail of evidence for the cops to follow. The prosecution didn't just rely on Smith's word. They brought receipts. Surveillance footage and cell phone records put both Johnson and Smith at the scene of the crime. It's hard to argue with that kind of evidence. Smith's testimony was the nail in the coffin for Johnson. He confirmed that Johnson was involved in planning and carrying out the hit. But the story gets even wilder. Smith claimed he was shot by Young Dolph's brother, Marcus Thornton, during the attack. But what drives someone to take on a job like this? Smith admitted he was popping pills and not caring about nothing at the time. The trial. The trial of Justin Johnson was a masterclass in building a case on circumstantial evidence. The prosecution didn't have a smoking gun, but they had something almost as damning, a trail of digital breadcrumbs and visual evidence that painted a clear picture of Johnson's involvement in Young Dolph's His legal team stated, Dolph has been killed, and we literally see him at the elevator with his suitcases. It's called Just Do What's Right. At the heart of the prosecution's case was surveillance footage. It showed Johnson wearing the same distinctive clothing as one of the shooters seen at the crime scene. This wasn't just about fashion. It was a crucial link, placing Johnson at the scene of the crime. The prosecution hammered this point home, using the footage to build a compelling narrative of Johnson's movements on the day of the But the evidence didn't stop there. Cell phone records became another key piece of the puzzle. These records tracked Johnson's movements, further tying him to the crime scene and the events surrounding the shooting. The prosecution also presented evidence of calls made to Big Jook after the These calls weren't just casual conversation. They were allegedly to confirm the hit had been carried out. But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source: Johnson's co-defendant, Cornelius Smith. Smith's testimony was damning, confirming Johnson's involvement in both planning and carrying out the hit on Young Dolph. I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I'm not gonna even lie. I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I was just, trying to get some money. Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman drove home the significance of the video evidence. He told the jury, Cornelius Smith and Justin Johnson killed Adolph Thornton Jr. on November 17th. We watched it happen, Hagerman said. He's guilty of the because we watched it on the video. The prosecution's case was so strong that it only took the jury about 4 hours to reach a unanimous verdict. They found Johnson guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. It was a swift and decisive end to a trial that lasted just 4 days. The verdict brought a sense of closure to those closest to Young Dolph. The defense's strategy. In a world of digital footprints, Johnson's defense had to get creative. The defense team's strategy was clear: create doubt. They zeroed in on the lack of physical evidence tying Johnson to the crime scene. Johnson's attorney, Luke Evans, hammered home the point that while Cornelius Smith's fingerprints were found in the getaway car, Johnson's DNA was nowhere to be found. Evans didn't pull any punches when it came to Smith's testimony. He straight up called Smith a liar, telling the court it's never justice to wrongfully convict someone. Evans said, Johnson didn't Adolph Thornton Jr. He didn't conspire to kill Adolph Thornton Jr., and he wasn't the man holding the pistol in the Makita video. The defense painted Smith as a man desperate to save his own skin, willing to say anything to get a better deal. But the prosecution had more than just Smith's word. They had surveillance footage showing someone who looked a lot like Johnson at the scene. The defense's response? That's not enough. Evans argued that just because someone's wearing similar clothes doesn't mean it's Johnson. It's a classic case of, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit logic. The defense also tried to poke holes in the timeline. Evans claimed the timestamp on the security footage wasn't accurate. If the timeline's off, he argued, how can we trust any of the prosecution's story? But here's the thing about circumstantial evidence. There's usually a lot of it. The prosecution had cell phone records, surveillance footage, and witness testimony all pointing to Johnson. It's like trying to fight a flood with a bucket. You might scoop out some water, but the tide's still coming in. Evans knew he was fighting an uphill battle. The jury had hours of testimony and mountains of evidence to sift through, so he tried to plant seeds of doubt wherever he could. Maybe the video isn't clear enough. Maybe the timeline's off. Maybe Smith's lying to save himself. It's a strategy as old as the justice system itself. When the evidence is stacked against you, you don't have to prove innocence. You just have to create enough doubt to make the jury think twice. But in the age of smartphones and security cameras, that's getting harder and harder to do. Every move we make leaves a digital trail, and in Johnson's case, that trail led right to Young Dolph's. The defense's job wasn't just to poke holes in the prosecution's case. They had to tell a different story. A story where Johnson wasn't at the scene, where the evidence was misleading, where reasonable doubt existed. In the end, it all came down to what the jury believed. Would they buy the defense's story of mistaken identity and unreliable evidence? Or would they see Johnson's digital footprint as a roadmap to guilt? The verdict. 12 strangers held Justin Johnson's fate in their hands. The defense threw everything they had at the wall, hoping something would stick. But in a case built on digital breadcrumbs, was there enough reasonable doubt to set him free? The jury didn't think so. After just 4 hours of deliberation, they came back with a verdict that shook the courtroom. Justin Johnson was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. Judge Jennifer Mitchell didn't waste any time. She handed down a life sentence for the first-degree murder charge. As the 13th juror, I affirm this verdict. As to the first-degree murder, I sentence you to life in prison, Shelby County Judge Jennifer Mitchell said, referring to Johnson. It was a heavy moment, the weight of justice settling over the room, but it wasn't over yet. Johnson's fate wasn't fully sealed. The sentencing for the other 2 charges was set for November 1st. The prosecution's case was tight. Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman put it bluntly. Johnson was caught before, during, and after the murder. The evidence was like a noose, tightening with each new piece presented. Surveillance footage, cell phone records, witness testimony, it all pointed to Johnson. But what about the lack of physical evidence? The defense tried to spin it, but in the end, it wasn't enough. The digital trail was too strong. For Young Dolph's family, the verdict was a bittersweet victory. His fiancée, Mia J., took to Instagram to share her thoughts. Today's verdict brings relief and restores my confidence in the justice system, she wrote. But you could feel the pain behind her words. No verdict can bring back a loved one. Mia J. didn't hold back. She talked about the frustration and challenges they faced in the 3 years leading up to the trial. The past 3 years, marked by the loss of Adolph and the events leading to the trial, have been incredibly frustrating, she said. But Mia J. found strength in her loss. My faith has been tested, she admitted, but Adolph's tragic execution has only strengthened my resolve to fight, not only for him, but for all Black men. Young Dolph's sister, Carlissa Brown, had something similar to say.
I want to say thank you to the jury for their service and decision in this case to bring us one step closer to justice for our family, friends, supporters, and the community that has supported us during this time.
She further added, I'm feeling relief that justice was brought today. We finally got to see the full picture of what happened, and it's going to help with the healing process. Based on the evidence, it wasn't a shock. Johnson was convicted. The person responsible had to reap the consequences and get what they deserved. It was worth the wait. The verdict sends a message, loud and clear. In the rap game, where beef can turn deadly in a heartbeat, actions have consequences. Young Dolph's wasn't just another statistic. It was a calculated hit, a $100,000 bounty on a man's life. And now, the man who pulled the trigger is facing life behind bars. But here's the thing about street justice. It's never simple. Johnson's going away for life, but what about the others involved? What about the alleged mastermind, Big Jook, or Hernandez Govan, the supposed middleman? The story doesn't end with Johnson's conviction. It's just another chapter in a long, complex narrative of violence and retribution. Life behind bars for Dolph's killer. From aspiring rapper to convicted, Justin Johnson's new home is a far cry from the streets of Memphis. The man who silenced Young Dolph is now facing a whole different kind of beat, the monotonous rhythm of life behind bars. But for a high-profile inmate like Johnson, prison ain't just about doing time. It's about surviving when everyone knows your face and your crime. Life in the pen for Johnson is a stark contrast to his days as straight drop in the rap game. The prison system's got its own rules for handling notorious inmates like him. They often keep these high-profile prisoners away from the general population. It's not special treatment. It's about keeping them alive. Johnson's probably looking at a lot of time in isolation. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it keeps him safe from other inmates who might want to make a name for themselves by taking out Young Dolph's. On the other hand, that kind of isolation can mess with your head. It's a far cry from the lifestyle he was chasing as an up-and-coming rapper. But Johnson's not showing any signs of breaking. Even after his conviction, he's still talking that street talk. He reportedly said, "These nankiness taking criminal responsibility. I'm taking street responsibility regardless. I'm for Eva the biggest. They can throw away the keys before I ever eat the cheese." Looks like he's trying to keep that street cred intact, even if he's trading in his mic for a prison uniform. The reality of prison life is hitting Johnson hard. He's gone from chasing his dreams in the music industry to facing a life sentence. That's a mental adjustment that most of us can't even imagine. And it's not just about losing his freedom. It's about losing everything he thought his future held. Johnson's high-profile status makes him a target. Other inmates might see him as a chance to gain respect or settle scores. The prison staff has got to be on high alert. They know that housing the killer of a beloved rapper comes with its own set of risks. As Johnson serves his time, the legal drama around Young Dolph's is far from over. There are still ongoing cases against other defendants. Each new trial, each new piece of evidence that comes to light could affect Johnson's situation behind bars. The fall from straight drop to just another inmate number is a hard one. Johnson's facing a life where every day is the same, where the only music he'll hear is whatever comes through on the prison radio. It's a long way from the recording studio and the streets of Memphis. The ongoing investigation. Johnson might be locked up, but this case is far from closed. New players are stepping into the spotlight, and their stories could change everything we thought we knew about Young Dolph's murder. The ongoing investigation is digging deeper, and it's uncovering some wild connections. Hernandez Govan, the alleged mastermind, is set to face the music on October 9th, 2024. That's when he's due back in court for a hearing. Govan's not just some random dude caught up in this mess. Prosecutors think he's the key to unraveling the whole conspiracy behind Dolph's. But Govan's not the only one talking. Jamarcus Johnson, half-brother of Triggerman Justin Johnson, has already pleaded guilty to accessory charges. Word is, he's ready to spill the beans on everyone else involved. That's bad news for anyone who thought they were in the clear. The streets are buzzing about what Jamarcus might say. His testimony could blow this case wide open, exposing all the players in this deadly game. It's like a house of cards, and Jamarcus might be the one to knock it all down. Prosecutors are playing their cards close to the chest, but they're hinting at some big revelations. They're saying the ongoing investigations could shed light on the whole conspiracy. It's not just about who pulled the trigger anymore. It's about who called the shots, who set it up, and who stood to gain from Young Dolph's death. This ain't just about one hit. According to Smith's testimony, there were multiple hits planned on artists connected to Young Dolph. It's like a web of violence, with Young Dolph at the center. The question is, how far does this web stretch? Hernandez Govan's trial date is still up in the air, but he's facing some serious heat. The charges against him are no joke. If convicted, he's looking at a long stretch behind bars. But here's the thing. Prosecutors think Govan might be ready to talk. If Govan starts singing, it could change everything. He's supposedly the middleman, the one who connected all the dots. If he starts naming names, who knows who might get caught in the crossfire? It's like a game of dominoes, and Govan might be the first piece to fall. As the investigation keeps digging, more and more layers are being peeled back. Each new revelation paints a clearer picture of what went down that day in Memphis. But it also raises new questions. Who else was involved? How high up does this go? The ongoing legal proceedings are like a ticking time bomb. Every hearing, every piece of testimony could be the one that blows this whole thing wide open. It's keeping everyone on edge, from the streets to the courtroom. Young Dolph's legacy. Young Dolph's story didn't end with his death. His name now echoes through Memphis in ways that might surprise you. The streets might be watching the trial, but they're also remembering Dolph differently. From turkey giveaways to pop-up museums, Dolph's impact went beyond his music. In the heart of Memphis, a street now bears the name Adolph Young Dolph Thornton Jr. Avenue. It's not just any street. It's close to where Dolph grew up and near the spot where he was gunned down. This ain't just about putting a name on a sign. It's about cementing Dolph's legacy in the very fabric of the city he loved. But Memphis ain't stopping there. There's talk of making November 17, the day Dolph was murdered, a day of service in Tennessee. They're calling it Adolph Thornton Day of Service. It's a move that speaks volumes about how Dolph was seen in his community. He wasn't just another rapper. He was a man who gave back. Dolph was known for his Thanksgiving turkey giveaways. Every year, he'd hand out hundreds of turkeys to folks in need. It wasn't about the clout. It was about taking care of his people. That's the kind of thing that sticks with folks long after the music stops playing. After Dolph's death, the city showed out. Murals started popping up all over Memphis. There was even a pop-up museum dedicated to him.
He poured so much into his family, community, and those around him. We definitely missed.
It's like the whole city was saying, "We ain't gonna forget you, Dolph." These tributes ain't just about remembering a rapper. They're about honoring a man who meant something to Memphis. Dolph's family ain't letting his legacy fade either. His sister, Carlisa Brown, is keeping his charitable work alive through the Ida Mae Family Foundation. It's named after their grandmother, showing that for Dolph, family, and community were always at the heart of everything. Even the Memphis Grizzlies got in on showing love for Dolph. They honored him during a game after his death. It just goes to show Dolph's impact went beyond music. He was part of the city's soul. But let's keep it real. Dolph's music wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. His tracks often reflected the hard realities of street life. He rapped about his struggles, his come-up, and yeah, sometimes about beef.
You jump in the streets, you start figuring out different stuff because everything I know and everything I got, bro, I had to teach myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't had no big brother.
It's that raw honesty that connected with his fans. Dolph wasn't just spitting rhymes. He was telling his truth, and a lot of people saw their own stories in his lyrics. Dolph's independent spirit in the music game was something else. He turned down deals from major labels, including Yo Gotti's CMG. That decision set off a chain of events that some say led to his death. It's a stark reminder of how real the politics in the rap game can get. But here's the thing about Dolph's legacy. It's complicated. On one hand, you've got the philanthropist, the guy who never forgot where he came from. On the other, you've got the rapper who wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers and speak his mind, even when it put him in danger. Memphis is choosing to remember the Dolph who gave back, the one who showed up for his community. It's like they're saying, yeah, he wasn't perfect, but he was ours. And in a city that's seen its share of hardship, that means something.